Hi everyone, my name's Garrick. I'm from the Energy Saving Trust, and I'll be talking about the Efficiency for Access Coalition's Research and Development Fund and our cooling core, which is opened just recently. And I'll be joined by Chris Beeland, who also works for the Energy Saving Trust, and we'll be presenting information about the fund and answer some questions at the end. So just for some housekeeping, just make sure you're muted throughout the presentation. We'll open up for questions at the end, so that's a time that you can ask questions, but also you can also type in questions into the chat box as the webinar goes along, and we'll answer them at the end. And there'll also be a feedback survey at the end of the webinar, so please fill that in after the webinar. So, okay, so let's move on to an overview of what we'll be presenting. So we'll go through a bit of background on the Efficiency for Access Coalition and the objectives of the program. And we'll talk about the first funding call that we recently closed and the results of that. Then we'll go through the second core, focused on cooling, and the scope of that. We'll talk about why we're focusing on cooling, the funding available, the different R&D categories that we're considering and the associated project lengths, the eligibility criteria, what's required to apply, the assessment criteria, the due diligence and award process. And we also offer some application assistance, so we'll talk a bit about that, and also about the intellectual property rights conditions of the fund. Then we'll go through the key dates and then open up for questions and answers. So just a bit about the coalition. The Efficiency for Access Coalition was launched in 2015 as a year-long call to action and a collaborative effort led by Global Leap and Sustainable Energy for All. In 2018, a number of leading governments, global financial institutions, and philanthropies came together under a scaled-up Efficiency for Access Coalition. So currently, the coalition members have programs and initiatives spanning 3 continents, 44 countries, and 19 technologies. And you can see the donor coalition shown in the slide. And we also have an investor network that we work with to try to increase investment into off-grid and weak grid appliances. And we have a number of program partners that we work with as well. And the co-secretariat, which is Energy Saving Trust and CLASP, we're the organizations that coordinate the coalition and bring together all the activities that are happening under the coalition. So under the coalition, we have a flagship program called the Low Energy Inclusive Appliances Program, the LEO program, and this is funded by UK Aid. It's a research and innovation program that aims to accelerate the availability, affordability, efficiency, and performance of a range of low energy inclusive appliances, particularly suited to developing country contexts. So this is the program under which the EforA Research and Development Fund provides funding through. So we have a number of technology focus areas in the LEO program. And so I should also say the LEO program, the aim of the program is to halve the cost and double the efficiency of a range of off and weak grid appliances in least developed countries. And so we have a number of technology focus areas under that in the near to market and also on horizon and enabling technologies. So near to market technologies that we're focused on are televisions, fans, solar water pumps, and refrigerators. And horizon and enabling technologies include brushless DC motors, connectivity, Internet of Things, advanced electric cooking, agricultural processing, interoperability, and advanced cooling. So the activities that we carry out under the layer program include those listed. So the main work streams are the competitions work stream, which we carry out a number of globally competitions, and we also have a design challenge for universities. We have a testing and quality assurance work stream. We have a communications work stream. We conduct research and market intelligence through the research work stream, and we have an R&D grants work stream, which is where the EforA Research and Development Fund falls under. So in the first core, which we opened up in December, and we closed in the last month or so, it was an open call for projects that aim to accelerate the availability, affordability, efficiency, and performance of a range of low energy inclusive appliances that are particularly suited to developing country contexts and promote social inclusion. So through that first open call, we funded, we funded 9 projects totaling £1.05 million. And there were also 6 cooking applications identified through that process, which MEX funded, which is the Modern Energy Cooking Services Program. This is a program that's also funded through UK Aid, and they funded these applications to the value of £750,000. So the applications that we funded included a number of different technologies, which you can see here. So that was refrigeration, cold chain, IoT, and low-cost sensors. We had a motor project, an agtech project, a fan project, an interoperable pay-as-you-go project, and an iron project. And you can see on the right the companies that we ended up funding in the first call. So this just shows the locations of the projects, the implementation of the projects. So many of the projects had multiple implementation locations. So it shows the range of organizations that conducted R&D, had a lab in one location and conducted field trials in another location, for example. So in this second call, we're focused on cooling, and the reason for that is that cooling is essential in achieving many of the sustainable development goals, such as the SDGs for poverty and health. And it's a prerequisite for broader economic development, enabling farmers to access new markets, as well as reducing food waste and food loss and waste. And in an increasingly warmer climate, cooling provides much needed relief and helps to save lives as well. So currently, the Efficiency for Access Coalition, through our communications activities, is also conducting a communications campaign, and we're providing information to raise awareness on the need for cooling in weak grid and off-grid areas. And we're doing this through Twitter and through LinkedIn and other sources using the hashtag efficiency for cooling. And now I'll pass on to my colleague Chris, who will go through more of the application-specific information.
Thanks, Garrick. So the scope of the cooling call is focused specifically on developing an innovative appliance, technology or product for use in off and weak grid settings. There are 3 focus areas to this call, and they include fans, refrigeration, and cold chain. For each focus area, we have identified a number of R&D priority areas and these can be found in the guidance for applicants document on the R&D funding page. For applications related to refrigeration technologies, we highly recommend interested applicants to review the recently published refrigeration technology roadmap produced by the Efficiency for Access Coalition. This can be found on the Efficiency for Access website, and we've also provided a link to it in the guidance for applicants document. So grant funding is available from £50,000 to £200,000 per R&D project, and we are making at least £1 million available for this goal. Applicants are required to provide match funding, and the level of match funding required to be provided by applicants depends on the size of your organisation. For example, if you're a micro-sized organisation, the match funding requirement is a minimum of 10%. Match funding may include in-kind contributions and financial contributions. These are defined in further detail in the frequently asked questions document that can be accessed from the funding page on the Efficiency for Access website. Just to note as well that project costs should only include costs related to the R&D work itself. And for example, applicants' budget should not include marketing or legal costs. So the stage of your R&D project determines the length of your project, and the definition of each category is provided in the guidance for applicants document. But I will briefly just quickly go through each category. So the first category is the early stage for feasibility studies category, and so that's for projects between 6 to 12 months, and defined as the primary focus of projects in this category are on developing and demonstrating the concept for a technology, and to analyse and evaluate the potential of a technology which supports the overall process of decision making. This stage is usually the first stage before conducting a subsequent larger project upon demonstration of a given concept. The second category is the mid-stage for industrial research category, and these projects are typically 12 to 24 months long. Projects in this category are concentrated on developing a product or its component parts that lead to an overall improvement in an existing product. The third category is the late stage for experimental development category, and R&D projects in this category will be focused on demonstrating, piloting, testing and validating new or improved products in real-life operating conditions. The objective will be to make further technical improvements on products. With regards to eligibility, organisations need to consider the following to be considered eligible. Organisations should be a legally registered and physically established business, academic organisation, a non-profit public sector organisation, or a research and technology organisation from anywhere in the world. Applicants may form partnerships. The lead partner will assume responsibility for the project and will be the recipient of the grant funding. Outcomes are also linked to both the programme's overall objectives and the scope. Sufficient match funding for project costs can be demonstrated, and compliance with fundamental in-country and international human rights, labour standards, and environmental management laws, and are not involved in any act of terrorism or support terrorist activities. Organisations should also allow for regular due diligence. And just please contact us if you're unsure if your project meets any of these eligibility requirements, and we can respond to you. So before starting your application, please ensure you have read the full guidance for applicants document. If you have not already registered, then please register on the link in the side of the page, in this slide, and then this is also accessible on the funding homepage by clicking the Register and Apply tab under Resources. Once registered, you'll be able to access the portal in which you can start your application. The application is made up of 5 sections: the R&D and project information, impacts and benefits, capacity and qualifications, project implementation and budget, and finally the important information and signature section. We expect you to complete each section of the application form to be able to submit the application form at the end. Please also ensure that you upload supporting evidence under the relevant questions, for example, in the application form under 1.4 technical evidence, but there are other questions as well where you can upload the relevant information. Under section 4, project implementation and budget, applicants will be required to specify individual milestones within the project timeline that are key deliverables that will contribute to the overall project objective. For each milestone, you're required to detail the amount of grant funding requested, as well as the match funding for each milestone. The amount requested in the final milestone must be equal to or greater than 10% of the total grant request. For the final milestone, we ask grantees to submit a final report where grantees provide additional information for the overall project, as opposed to each individual milestone. Once the final report is approved, we will then pay the grantees the final milestone. So once your application is submitted, we will then screen applications to ensure that they meet the eligibility requirements. Assessment of applications are conducted by 2 EforA assessors and independent technical experts that are selected from an assessment panel. In the table on the slide, we have provided the assessment criteria that reviewers will review the applications based upon. So when completing your application, please ensure that you've reviewed the assessment criteria, and this can be found again within the Guidance for Applicants document. We'd also like to draw your attention to the assessment criteria number 3, where applications that have at least some part of their project in a UK aid priority country will receive extra points. For example, this could be a field trial or an R&D in country, or some of the activities are in a UK aid priority country. So once the panel has decided on the applications we'd like to fund, we will notify successful applicants of this, and obviously it's subject to due diligence. At this point, we'll then go through a due diligence phase, which we may request further technical due diligence depending on the panel discussion, and we will also request further financial due diligence, as well as asking you to complete a due diligence and safeguarding questionnaire. Please note that we understand that some organisations may not be able to answer some of the due diligence questions, and should this be the case for your organisations, please do not let us deter you from applying, as we may seek to mitigate these risks in other ways. Once we are satisfied with the due diligence provided, we will then confirm the awarding of the grant, and we will send a grant agreement to be signed by both parties. Within this, we'll also include an M&E plan template in the grant agreement, and also hold a webinar with grantees to explain how to complete the M&E plan for your R&D project. With regards to reporting, for each milestone, you'll be required to submit a milestone report, which again can be found via the Guidance for Applicants document, and also an expenditure form, as well as supporting documentation. For the final milestone, you will be required to submit a milestone and final report, along with the usual expenditure form. In the final report, we ask you to reflect on the project as a whole with regards to achievements, outcomes and impacts, as well as kind of next steps and commercialization. We also ask you to evaluate the project, identifying what went well and not so well, as well as anything else you may do differently. So during the application process, the EforA Research and Development Fund team can provide some support. If you're looking for partner organisations with specific areas of expertise, and up until that point you haven't been able to find or identify an organisation that matches this, then please do contact the team, and we may be able to matchmake you with another organisation with the appropriate expertise. If you're a micro-sized organisation, which is defined in section 3 of the Guidance for Applicants document, or your organisation is based in a UK aid priority country, as defined in section 6 of the same document, then the team is available to assist you in reviewing your draft application. It is important to note that we will provide a basic review, and the comments provided by the reviewer may differ from the ultimate judgment of the application assessors. Should either of these support mechanisms be relevant to your organisation, then you must contact us by the 26th of July 2019 to receive this support. So we'd just like to draw your attention to the intellectual property rights requirements that can be found in the grant agreement, which is that there's a link from the guidance for applicants document. Grantees under this call will be required to adopt a standard approach by public funders such as DFID with regards to intellectual property. In terms of key dates, the call opened on the 19th of July and will close at midnight BST on the 16th of August 2019. Any applications received after this point will not be eligible for review. By the end of September, successful applicants that pass due diligence will be notified, and projects will begin by mid-October. So that concludes the presentations from the fund team. And I'll just pass you back over to Garrick now.
Hi, so thanks for that, Chris. So we have a few questions, or I guess a couple of questions. The first is from Judith Evans, and that question is, how do you deal with SMEs where owners are paid by dividends? Is there a set hourly rate for such organizations as there is in EU projects? So what I would say is, because this is a global program, we don't have set rates such as for EU projects that you might see in EU-funded grant funding programs. But we would like to see rates referenced to similar rates in the region where you're working. So it should be justified in some way. We also, in our assessment criteria, we also consider value for money. So it's very important that the rates that you specify are reasonable and provide value for money. Yeah, I think that answers the question. Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that you covered it well with Garrett.
Okay, great. So the second question we have is from Martin Sun. And you're asking, could I ask where the criteria could be found in the previous slide? So I think the criteria, you might be referring to the assessment criteria, which is, Chris, if you could go back to slide 17, the assessment slide. Yeah, so I think that might be the criteria you're referring to, but if not, please let us know. But this criteria is in the guidance for applicant document. So if you go to our website, which is, I guess, let's see, I can type it in into the box, but I think we should already have access to it. Yeah, I think maybe Chris Schroeder, could you type it into the box so that people have direct access to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the efficiencyforaccess.org/funding is kind of where the EforA Research and Development Fund information is found. And then on the right-hand side of the page, on the sidebar, there will be a link to the guidance document. And I guess just at this point, the guidance document has basically all the information that you will need within it. And if you have any questions, then obviously, if it's not covered in that document, then please email us when you're reviewing it.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Okay, and then we have another question from Paul Bertumo. Could companies work with others as a consortium? So yes, we encourage companies to form partnerships, and if there's a partnership that is formed, then the lead applicant would be responsible for the funding and would receive the funding. Yeah, so if you have any other questions about that, please feel free to ask. We have another question from Editayo Adegbeble, and you're asking, please, do you have any partner on communications in Nigeria? If not, how do you plan to get the efficiency for calling campaign local? So in terms of communications, I'm not sure if Chris Joda wants to step in here. Would you like to answer that, Chris?
Hi, Garrick. Hi, everyone. So just to answer the question, and that's to do with our communications in Nigeria and in the areas where these applications and appliances and projects will be based. We're working on expanding our communications to reach out to those locally in the areas who would be able to help us disseminate and share this news with everyone there. So that's something that is on our plate. So we're working very hard on that with media partners and amplifiers who will be able to get that information into the hands of the people who need it. At the moment, we are just spreading the news of the campaign globally, but it is something that we are looking into.
Yeah, and if I just jump in there as well, sorry, just quickly, Garrick. Yeah, I guess we're kind of, in terms of ensuring that we're kind of reaching everyone, we kind of targeting sector specific organizations, kind of member bodies, etc. And then also kind of more on the innovation side and identifying kind of accelerators and in country that where startup companies can also access the R&D funding in this round.
Thanks, Chris. So we have the follow-up question from Martin's son, and this looks to be in a reference to the assessment criteria as well. So he's asking, sorry, but could you specify which doc got the 1.2 to 4.10 listed? So that's in reference to the application form itself. So Chris, if you could go back to the slide before that, the applying slide before that. Yeah, so when you fill in the application form, there's 5 sections. So there's, you can see on that slide, the first section is on R&D project information, and then impacts and benefits is the second section. Section 3 is capacity and qualifications, and then 4 is project information and budget, and 5 is important information and signature. So the questions that are referred to in the assessment slide, if you could go back to that, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those questions, the key application questions, those refer to the questions within those sections of the application form. So yeah, once you open up the application form, you'll be able to see each of those individual questions.
And you can also you can download the application form in like a PDF format just as a sample document as well. So you can sort of compare the two quite easily without having to click between windows.
Yeah. So one moment, I seem to have lost the questions window. Okay. So we've got another question from Tracy Kimati. And you're asking, are we to upload relevant studies that have been carried out internally by the lead organization, or could we reference externally published reports? So yeah, you could do either. We're happy to receive any supporting evidence. So that could be externally published reports, or that could be internal studies. So we will check them and make sure that they're relevant and they provide support to your project. Next question we have is from Luciana W.S. Ramos, and you're asking, could you please give more details about sufficient match funding? So maybe we should go back to the slide the slide with the match funding. Let me have a look. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so in terms of match funding, so those are the different organization sizes, and for each, you're required to provide a different amount of match funding. So for micro organizations, so we would fund up to 90% of the project costs, and the organization would have to provide match funding of 10% or more. And then for small organizations, we would provide up to 70%, and the match funding would be 30% or more. For medium, it's up to 60% of funding from us, and match funding of 40% or more. And then for large, we provide up to 50%, and should be matched by the organization of at least 50%. And you can see the eligible project costs and ineligible project costs listed there. So in terms of match funding, that should, the costs are covered in those tables, and the match funding should also come under eligible project costs there. And Chris, did you want to say anything else about that?
Yeah, sure. Just quickly on how the match funding can be provided as well. So match funding can be provided either in cash, so that can be direct financial contributions to the project from the applicant or a third party, such as a donor. And also secondly, by in-kind contributions. So in-kind match funding would include any sort of significant and quantifiable contribution to the project that is not financial. So that could be staff time or facilities. But then in that example, then evidence will need to be provided to the fund team when submitting specific milestone reports. That's all, yeah. So, but that just to flag, those kinds of questions are also within the FAQ document. So the guidance document is one kind of key document, but the FAQ document has kind of like queries like that in it as well.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Okay, so the next question is from Surendra Pandit. And your question is, I had a problem on Chris' voice to hear properly, so could you please share this slide? So yeah, we will be sharing the presentation as a PDF on the website. So I think we can also send it out to all the attendees as well. So we'll aim to do that soon after this presentation is completed. And the next question is from Judith Evans. What TRL levels are you seeking for project technologies? So we haven't linked our funding to specific TRL levels, but we basically, originally we were looking at TRLs from, basic research, TRL 1, 2, through to, I think TRL 6 or 7, technology demonstration. So yeah, we're quite open to all levels of R&D, basically. Did you have anything to add to that, Chris?
No, I think that covers it well.
Okay, great. So, okay, so that no other questions have come in so far, but if you do have any other questions, please feel free to type them in now. Also feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question if it's a difficult question to type in, or if you're calling in. As Chris mentioned, we do have an FAQ, a frequently asked questions document, which covers a lot of questions that we have received before. Okay, so we've just received another question from Martin Sun. Per the slide of R&D categories and project length, there's no production topics listed. Could the applicants introduce the design into actual products after the project by themselves, or it'll be decided by the fund? Okay, so I'm not entirely clear about this question. Do you want to unmute yourself and maybe clarify on that, Martin? Okay, so Martin can't unmute himself, but I think what you're asking is if the fund has to decide how the design or how the R&D outputs are used in products. I'm not sure if that captures what you're asking, but basically we don't have any control over what's produced, what's outputted, and we don't ask the grantees to do anything specific with the outputs from the R&D. The main thing is that we receive reporting on the R&D outputs, and we will ask to try and share as much information as possible about the R&D to the public, but we'll agree with the awardee, with the grantee, about what we will be sharing. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but please feel free to type in a clarification question if not. Chris, do you want to add anything on that?
I think you've covered it. I guess it's just to point back to maybe the assessment criteria and how we assess the applications in terms of different criteria, and that kind of things such as the market for technology or product and scalability, the ability to scale the product. So I guess in your application you need to demonstrate that the product that is being developed or component within the product you can demonstrate in your application that there is an opportunity to scale that product and there is a market for it as well. So just in case that maybe that angle as well, I don't know if that helps to cover it, but yeah, just to add that, Garrick, really. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So Martin's typed in a follow-up. So would the design be owned by the public, the fund, instead of the applicants then? So no, the intellectual property is owned by the applicant, by the grantee. So what we specify, and I don't want to, I think it's best to reference the guidance for applicants because the language is very exact. But basically, we, as part of our grant funding through DFID, through UK Aid, where we ask for a license to the intellectual property rights, and that is basically to use for communications purposes, but it will not be used for production or ownership of any outputs of the R&D. So we won't be using it to produce our own products or anything like that. And yeah, it's a requirement of all UK Aid funded grant projects. It's kind of a stopgap measure. Well, not really a stopgap measure, but a backup measure, in case there's some kind of, I guess, untoward issues that occur. Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I just think it's just the reason is we, as a public funder, UK Aid has no intention of using the intellectual property rights for commercial reasons, and as Garrick said, it's more for just to take benefit from the agreement and to kind of share for publicity reasons to be able to sort of share the lessons learned and to talk about it. But that would be obviously done in partnership with the grantee.
Yeah, so thanks, Chris. So it would be best if you refer to the guidance for applicants. That will have the full proper language and will explain it, I think, a lot better. So we have some more questions that have come in. So we have one from Editayo Adeg Bemle, and you're asking what countries are UK Aid priority countries? Can you list them? So Chris, would you better go down to the last slide that has a list of all the UK aid priority countries. So this is the list. It can also be found in our guidance for applicants document again. So that's a very important document to refer to. It has all the information that you need. But yeah, here's the list right now. And we have another question from Luciano W.S. Ramos. For micro-sized organization, what's the deadline to send a draft of the application for review? So we mentioned this before. I'll just go back to that. One moment. So the deadline is 26 July. So you need to contact us by that date if you would like us to do an initial review of your draft application. And okay, so there's no other written questions right now, but I've been advised that Judith and Roberto have indicated they have questions and have been unmuted. So Judith and Roberto, would you like to, do you have questions that you would like to ask? Okay, so it doesn't appear so. So I think we can move on, see if there's any other questions. Okay, so there doesn't appear to be any other questions right now. Judith or Roberto, if you do have any other questions, please feel free to email us and we can get back to you directly. And that goes for everyone else on the webinar. If you have any other questions, please feel free to send us an email. Please do check the FAQ, the frequently asked questions document, before you email us with a question, because that does have a lot of questions that we've received before. And also, please have a look through the guidance for applicants. That has all the information basically that you'll need to apply for the program, for the fund. Do you have anything else you want to add, Chris, before we sign off?
No, nothing else from me. Thank you, Garrick.
Okay, great. So thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks for your time and good luck with your applications. We're here to help, so please feel free to contact us if you need. And I think that's all. Thanks everyone and have a good day.
Have a good day.